Welcome to Season 3 of Malevolent Autopsy. I'm your host, Queen. I use she, her pronouns, and I am so excited to be here with you all. Now, let me warn you, the show contains major spoilers for everything in Malevolent as of the day this episode is published, so if you're not caught up, I'm not liable. Before we get started tonight, I'd like to ask my lovely co-host, what part of Arthur's body are you betting on getting injured this week?
Howdy, hello, Vol Control here. I use he, him pronouns, and this week I'm betting Arthur's fingers are getting hurt. I mean, why not? It's only right after the first time Arthur has chosen to play the piano on his own accord on the podcast. Something terrible is going to happen to his hands.
Yeah,
surely.
for sure. I can guarantee it. Would you remind the public listeners what we just listened to?
The episode this week was a real treat. I think we can all agree. It starts with Arthur, stunned by what is being asked of him, withdrawing to have a moment to himself, but not before throwing it back at the king that John would have never asked him of this. Arthur silences Lilith not by putting her in timeout, but by request, and she obliges. Arthur spells out his sorrow and rage and frustration until he finds himself bumping into a fateful, familiar instrument. He sits at the bench and asks Lilith if she would like to hear him play the song he wrote for Pharaoh. After a beautiful performance, Lilith reads him for absolute filth and challenges him to write a song actually for Pharaoh, a song she would like. With a little of Lilith's guidance, Arthur composes Pharaoh's Light with nary a minor key in sight. Lilith decides to cover for Arthur. She'll let him keep his memories of Pharaoh, but they have to act as if he's let go. Then they return to the king and fucking Larson. Arthur's feeling a little uneasy about the whole crawling like a dog thing, and he tries to address it with the king, but the king isn't having any of it. But he does offer us the choice. Will we walk beside Larson?
Thank you, Vol. This chapter had so many moments that it's one of those chapters where I'm like, oh, that happened in the same one. Oh, that was 5 minutes
and then
ago.
the fucking tonal shift at the end with the vote. It gives me emotional whiplash in the best and I think most malevolent kind of way, where it's like, oh, they're the horrors.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, everyone is talking about the new song. Everyone is talking about Pharaoh and all of those feelings, and we are going to talk about that. But the fact that this chapter ends on a Larson vote about, I think, something that I keep forgetting about. Like, yes, it's there and it keeps coming up, but I just keep completely forgetting that there is a whole man in this chapter.
It's like every time that Arthur is without clothes, you just shut it out. You don't think about it as much as possible, but it's there. It is there. Yeah, I after this chapter dropped and we sat through just some really beautiful diegetic music, this really moving moment, this Arthur soliloquy, like all this beauty, and then the end comes and I sort of shuffled into the poll discussion channel like, so, okay, now we have to think about Larson crawling on the ground.
Before we get into earnest discussion of the chapter, I want to clarify for anyone listening who does not know, diegetic is when the characters can hear the music in the show. So that is Arthur playing on the piano, intentionally choosing to play on the piano, that he can hear, Lilith can hear. But there are so many times that we hear Pharaoh's song or a lot of the tracks on Malevolent's official Bandcamp that are not diegetic. So those are non-diegetic, and that just means that the typical movie soundtrack that the characters don't hear, that's just adding to the narrative and the story.
Right. It's just the normal score.
Yes. I think with those couple of things out of the way, I want to say, I think something that in particular resonated with me and made this chapter very meaningful for me. Everyone cried. Everyone had that like deep emotional reaction to this new song and this conversation
I
that
didn't
Lilith
cry. I didn't cry. You
that
can't prove
Lilith
that.
Lilith and Arthur had. But for me, I think it comes down to my carrot, which is actually that having the context around the storyteller really
Hmm.
changes things for me in how I process the narrative. I think for
Oh,
me,
absolutely.
so much of this scene was actually made because I didn't have to suspend my disbelief. I fully knew that the clips that we were hearing of Arthur and Farrow was Harlan and Marie. And
Yeah.
I knew that that was a very real scene of a child and their parent and that love that comes so naturally at that age. And for me, knowing the context around the person telling the story and what is meaningful to them and what life experiences they're putting into this work has turned things upside down for me in the best way. I think
Hmm.
it enhances
Yeah.
every part of the story for me. It makes everything a little bit better and more meaningful and impactful. And I think it's very interesting to see a creator that is still so deeply involved and still very giving of his own personal thoughts and what he puts into the
Absolutely.
story. It just is more impactful, and it's made me realize how Harlan's involvement in like the fan space
The
and also
community.
his
Yeah.
openness and willingness to share parts of his life and
Yeah.
what the story means to him have changed how I see Malevolent and how I experience it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I really do think that it's so vulnerable and touching that he is willing to share this little window into his experience and his life. And I know that it's not for just us. Like it's for
Right.
him too. Like
Yeah.
he's sort of crystallizing this moment that was so important to him because of his relationship with fatherhood and with being a father. And it also makes me think of there was an artist who wrote an essay about comparing how intimate art becomes from the experiences that shape it, and likened it to putting it through a blender. And sometimes you put your experiences through a blender and it comes out as a 10, and it is totally unrecognizable from your experiences that you put into it, like running from monsters, say. That's informed by something, but it's not a one-to-one.
Right.
And then sometimes you put your experiences in a blender and you only dial it up to one, and it's this very personal one-to-one experience where you are telling a fictional story, but it's something that happened to you. It's something that you experience, and this feels like one of those blenders turned down to one. Like this is unfiltered.
Yeah, and I think that it comes across. I think this episode
Yeah.
feels as deeply emotional as I think it must have been. And I also
Hmm.
always think about the fact that we are living in a digital age where you have this history book online of your parents'
Hmm.
voices and words and opinions and faces, and like
Hmm.
that's never happened for people before. This is so new, and
Yeah.
Marie's gonna grow
Yeah.
up and have like hours and hours and hours of her dad like doing all of this
Yeah.
and be able to hear herself in the podcast. And I mean, he talks about it on his own streams when he does spooky streaming on his channel. Like, she's gonna probably listen back to this, and that's gonna be a different person at that point. And man,
Right.
boy, the whole concept of
Yeah.
people being different later, woof.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a lot. Sappy stuff out of the
Yeah,
way.
yeah.
Do you want to go on to your stick or
Yeah, I'll just do my stick because my stick is Larson. And my
the
stick
tonal
is
shift?
my
The tonal shift carries over from Malevolent into Autopsy.
my stick is Larson primarily because you took my stick, but my stick is Larson because I don't I don't like that he's still relevant. It gives me an uneasy feeling. I don't like it.
So it's not that Larson is collared and on the floor and on a leash and crawling like a dog. It's just that Larson is in the podcast again as a
I
character.
just don't like that he's relevant again. It gives me the ick. I don't like it. What's he doing
Oh,
here?
that's so
He
funny.
didn't need to be here. I don't know.
That's so funny.
They could have killed him
I see.
off.
I feel completely the opposite. I'm fascinated that he's still here and still relevant, and that his story, his part in the story, isn't over. I'm so intrigued.
I mean, look, the stick is meant to be things that I'm anxious about or like scared, excited
Oh, I'm
about.
not judging you for your stick. No, it's a fair
I want to
stick.
clear
I'm
the
giving a
record.
fair shake to your fair stick.
I want to clear the record and say I'm also intrigued by Larson being here, but I don't like it. Like, I don't like that he's here. It's interesting, and of course I'm like low key happy about it because I always like it when old characters come back. Man, I really like it when old characters come back, if anyone's listening to this. But what Larson represented in the narrative was so awful. And so for him to come back, and like, yes, I know part of that is because we're supposed to see him like at a very, very low point and, you know, look at the kind of
getting his just desserts.
Yeah.
And,
but man, I don't like that we're even getting a chance to prolong contact with that thing. Ew.
That thing.
Ew. His eyes aren't even his own eyes. He had them sewn back in. They're someone else's eyeballs. How the fuck? That's so gross. Ew.
That's fair. That's fair. That's a very fair stick to have.
What about your carrot?
Well, since I am not going to subject all of you to my rendition of reciting all or at least part of Arthur's soliloquy in this moment, I chose something else. Although know that I have like a quotation, a section of it pulled up in another document because I was so moved by the poetry of the phrasing of Arthur's soliloquy. That said, that's kind of everybody's carrot.
Yeah.
My carrot, other than that, was the king saying, "I heard music. It was lovely. A new piece." I loved that. I loved getting to see, and it didn't even feel necessarily like John peeking out, because I don't even think that John would be that normal about hearing Arthur play. It felt like the king, the combined personalities of Yellow and John and the king all rolled into one, and his appreciation of music and art and things like that.
I fucking love the king. Cool. I fucking love the king. And if he ever goes away, I will be so sad. I mean, I will accept it and be happy, I'm sure, for other reasons. But oh my God, I love the king. I love the king. I love a regal idiot. I love it. I love the like detached, like, I want to have feelings, but I'm a king and I know I'm not supposed to. Yes. I love that shit.
Yes. So I have to be regal and detached. Yeah. Yes. No, I love it too. I love it too.
What was your stick? Stealer.
Oh, why did Lilith change her mind? Why did she decide, okay, you can keep your memories of Faro, and we're gonna just pretend to we're gonna lie to everybody.
It's been
why?
Like, you know, did you ever get like those jumping beans that they would get, like you hold them in your hand and they're like little hard beans that jump? I know that I learned later on in life they're not actually beans. And
I know.
But you know what those are.
To what you refer.
Thank you. Okay. Nobody look up jumping beans if you want to be happy. So I think for me, it felt like a little jumping bean has been in my brain all week after hearing this whole about face thing. I don't know what to think. I'm so back and forth on it.
It's one of those things where like, I mean, I have so many thoughts, but I just don't know what to think. And I'm so curious to see how this is going to play out. And I'm sort of two minds. It's almost like, okay, did we fuck up by choosing to not let go of Faro's memory? Or was this sort of going to be the outcome either way? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Yeah. So like, I have seen people double reach around and say, this is actually a bad thing. And that
Right, right,
Lilith
right.
Lilith changing her mind is even worse. And like, I don't know, it's very difficult for me to settle on what I think is going on. It's so suspicious. I
Yeah.
don't like it.
Yeah, because I think that this is one of those episodes where I think the content, the majority of the content of this episode was set in stone and would have happened no matter what.
Right.
But sort of the way that the conversation goes between Arthur and Lilith and her deciding that he doesn't have to let go, I think that was sort of the vote, which means that, like, it almost feels like Lilith made this decision. Like, yes, Arthur was talking throughout, his soliloquy and throughout the episode, like, how could I let her go? But he could have said that either way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, spoiler alert, if you close your eyes, most of the polls in this season, you could just not have had them and probably not much would have changed. But like, the point is that I think in particular it's fascinating that she all that had to happen was that she heard a song. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that says a lot about how vulnerable Lilith might be to
Mm.
everything from emotion to manipulation. I'm wondering if, yes, Lilith is probably the smartest or, most cunning character in the podcast, but I think she is still working on something. Like, I don't think she has everything fully
Yeah,
figured out just yet. And I
she's
think that
cooking.
she's trying
Mm-hmm.
to pivot as she feels things and as she sees Arthur differently.
Well, apparently the play that she thought that they were all playing parts in isn't going quite the way that she expected with the king. So maybe she was like, well, now that I think about it, yes, I think I'll move a few pieces a little differently. Who
Yeah.
knows?
Colder than I would have liked is going to live
Ugh,
in my brain
still
forever.
haunting. Still haunting me.
Forever and ever. Okay. Do we want to listen to some other people talk about the episode?
Let's do.
Hi, Snake, pronouns he, him, and she, her. This chapter was so satisfying to listen to. Arthur and Lilith both said so many things I've been thinking, and it was great. It was great. Before Arthur plays Thoreau's song, he asks if the cost to save existence is to leave Thoreau behind, forgotten and unloved, then what existence is worth saving? The king is rebuilding Carcosa, but what is the point of rebuilding it, if not to safeguard something fragile, like Thoreau, even in memory? The king said in 286 that the single most valuable thing is a life, but it concerns me he's lost perspective in becoming a full god about what makes a life worth living. This is a big reason I think we're going to get John back. Like, that perspective is too important to lose, right? Speaking of perspective, it makes perfect sense to me that Lilith is the one who guides Arthur into composing Thoreau's Light. I think she's the only one who could have given Arthur the push he needed, because she cares about Thoreau's perspective and even understands it to a degree, I think. Yet she didn't think that Arthur could prove his love for Thoreau was genuine, and he did. And that love matters. It's going to change the world. It's beautiful.
Thank you for your lovely submission. I really appreciate it, Snake.
Yeah, that was such a wonderful. I think this is your first submission, and it was such a delight. I really like what you mentioned right off the top with Arthur and Lilith both speaking for the patrons, because we had joked last week about, like, oh, we should just send Harlan some questions and help him write the chapter. And it was so funny because Arthur and Lilith both said things that I literally saw other people saying in
Yeah.
the Discord or in their submissions for Autopsy, and that was pretty wild.
I love when you actually get to see. I mean, payoff is always satisfying in this
Yeah.
podcast. I mean, especially to me, I'm always talking about it feels like payoff in this season. But I think in particular, this could have been. If you had told me that Harlan watched the Discord and grabbed notes to make the chapter, I would have fully been like, yeah, that makes sense.
But it's even crazier that I do not think he does
Oh,
that.
no. Of course not.
Right.
No, I don't think he looks at anything. I think a lot of these chapters are basically pre-written at this point. I don't think they're literally written. I know that
Right.
he is his creative process is different from planning, and I think that I think that was that too harsh?
I see the spreadsheet looming behind Queen as she says this.
It's just, you know what? It's exactly how, like, if I could be honest, it's exactly how I write. When I do creative writing, if I've told Vol, if I get up in the middle of writing it, it won't get finished.
Yeah.
It has to be all
Yeah.
done at once or I will die. And so I know that it's kind of the similar process that Harlan has described. He locks himself in a room and he says he doesn't leave till he gets it done.
Right.
That's the kind of discipline you have to have when you're making something weekly, and also when it's like you don't have the how do you say it? It's just a different way that some creative brains work, where it all just has to happen at once. You can't space it out. I love planning, but I've never in my life successfully planned a story that I've written. So
Right, right. And, you know, sometimes the tricky thing with that is that if you plan a story too granularly, like you get down to all the nitty gritty, sometimes actually writing it becomes sort of an exhausting task, because you're like, but I already did it. My
Right.
brain says that I
oh my
already
God.
did it.
Yeah, I've had a whole sit-down conversation with Val about this, about the fact that I don't write most of the ideas I have, because in my head, once I've thought of them, I've completed them. That's it. What's the point?
It's a curse.
I know how it ends.
It's a curse.
Who cares? So I totally get it.
Yeah. Yeah, but also having a weekly challenge of you need to write, write, perform, edit, polish a piece of a story every week. I think that doing that really helps you get over that hump of stopping yourself because it's not perfect. And it's incredible the amount of polish that Harlan has week to week. I just, in awe of that.
Yeah, agreed. And I also want to say about Snake's Note, this chapter did make me think we are getting John back. I was originally very, very, as I've said before, and I'll shorten it even more, I kind of just accept what the chapter is giving me as truth every week, and I try not to hope for anything to change in any one direction, because I don't want to pin all my hopes on any outcome. But
if you have no expectations, you'll never be disappointed.
Exactly. And also it's easier to deal with heartbreak. Like, if I sat here going, oh, I hope we get John back. I hope we get John back. I want John back. It would just make me sad if it never happened. And
sure,
I don't know Malevolent, so I'm not gonna say that we're getting John back. Like, I don't want to say that that's gonna happen. I do think it might happen, and I say that kind of more on the lines of like a theory rather than a hope, is I guess the difference I'm trying to say. I don't hope we get John back, because I've learned if I hope for things too much, it often is like, I don't want to say it doesn't work out, but it usually takes longer. Like, what I want is going to take longer to happen. So I just kind of let it simmer. But I think we are going to get John back. I think we're getting John back because I think he's already been, like, if you add up all of the things that we've seen the king do so far, he's really testing Arthur in multiple ways. And I don't think I don't think he really needs to test Arthur like that if he is fully settled into this deity that he is now, this entity.
Yeah.
And I think that having Lilith intentionally walk away to have a moment alone with Arthur, and that moment be so representative of this journey. It's like such a big character moment, and for John to not be there during that moment, I think was significant to not only Arthur, but also to the idea. I really think there's a good chance that he heard all of that. Like, I really think there's a good chance he heard every word they said and the entire song. I don't think it would fool anybody if he said he didn't hear it. Like, there's just no way. I just don't buy it. I mean,
he literally comments on the music. Like, he heard the music,
right?
So he can't be that far off.
Why wouldn't he hear them both talking? And on top of that, I just think it would be interesting if there was a moment of like another test for Arthur that brings John back, depending on
Right.
whether Arthur succeeds or fails. I think this vote could even tie into that. So we'll
Yeah,
see.
yeah, I've seen some theories about that, about how this might be another like sort of morality or like ethical test or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello, this is Spade, and I love this chapter. Feel like it's one of my favorites as of recent. The line Arthur says, "I must know what, that John would have never asked this of me," was painful and true. John would have never asked Arthur to give up Furrow, especially not after the events of Season 3. His dialogue wounds me greatly, but the specific lines, "What humor to believe that beings such as this demand something so human be stripped of me. What an insult." As if they know the feeling of having a hole in your heart that will never close and pain in your stomach that will never cease, and as if practiced at this, they dare ask for me to give it up. And he's right. He's right about all of it. But I want to focus specifically on the last part and the last pull. I am now more convinced that the manager did not mean to let go of Furrow. This makes me feel more like Lilith was just using the words against Arthur to get what she wants. Because the manager can't ask for that out of Arthur. He knows what it feels like. Perhaps not to fully the extent of what Arthur feels. Maybe he feels similar in his own way. We don't know the manager that well. But, according to Lorik, we know the manager learned hope. Because his Lilith died. And he's clung on to that because of it. He can't ask Arthur to give up Furrow. Because he can't let go of his own daughter. If the manager learned hope because of Lilith's death, he cannot ask Arthur to give up his own hope of Furrow. And that is all. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Spade. And you may not know the manager, but he's my best friend, so speak for yourself.
Spade, you're the reason I couldn't read any of the soliloquy, because you included some of the really lovely lines in your voice sub. So thank you for somebody reading some of that soliloquy. It was really, really incredible.
Yeah.
I think you make a really good point about how this was Lilith manipulating those words when that's not what the manager meant. But I also have to wonder, like, is Lilith trying to keep the truth that Arthur didn't let go of Furrow from the king or from the manager? Or like, who is she tricking? Who is she tricking?
I don't think she's dumb enough to think she's tricking the king. I know that's the most visible front-facing answer, is that she's trying to keep that, but I have a feeling that all of them are being watched by somebody, and that Lilith knows that if Arthur says things, they go on the record, kind of the way that, you know, when you're at work and you want to leave a little bit early but you don't want to clock out, people are just like, "Oh, do you need to go to the bathroom for a really long time? And maybe your shift will be over by the time you get out." Like that kind of thing, you know, like you don't, you're not supposed to say it. You're just supposed to do it and not say anything. So I have this feeling that Lilith is acting under surveillance of some kind, or maybe she is trying to watch her step just in case she is. I think she knows
where's
that
a hand of malevolence when you need one?
we know that Cain is very strongly drawn to Arthur, and so maybe she's worried, kind of in the way that, you know, you can't say certain, like Beetlejuice, you can't say his name 3 times or he'll, you know, appear, that kind of thing.
Sure.
What if it's
I thought you were gonna I thought you were gonna go the direction of, you can't say walk or treat around a dog. You have to which fitting for this episode.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't say Arthur too loudly or Cain will perk up and hear you.
He will think he's going on walkies to see Arthur.
Yeah, maybe. And now that I joked about the hand of malevolence, now I'm wondering, is Lilith gonna have a turnabout is fair play moment where she has some trick up her sleeve that makes them like invisible from Cain? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, and I could see that. I think Lilith was so frustrated when she was like, how could you have thought of making this thing? Like, how did he know that this was going to happen? So I think she's just trying to be extra cautious too. I have to wonder who Lilith is keeping secrets from, why, and then how much did the manager know? We truly did not get anything from him. The longer that goes on, I really don't think that man told us shit.
Right. The longer that goes on, the more mysterious the manager becomes. Honestly, like he was already like an interesting, powerful, mysterious player in this, but the further we get and the more like little tiny details that we learn about him, the more it's like, what is your deal? I guess that's sort of my tagline for all of Malevolent is
Yeah,
like
what is your
each
deal?
story arc, each new character, each new story arc. I'm like, what is your deal?
Hello, autopsiers. Gogoat here. Any pronouns? This is what I was on about in my last note. This is what I was talking about. This is letting go. Holding her memory, acknowledging his grief, but remembering the joy she brought him. She is a part of him, and to forget her is to forget the happiest years of his life. He is remembering those years, treasuring them, and holding them close. But it is also a reminder of his mistakes, from which he can maybe even learn from. Her fire guides him, but the fire is not always for comfort. Music didn't bring Jung back, but it showed Lilith a little glimmer of how Arthur felt. Lilith has realized in this moment letting go is not only not what Arthur wants to do, it is also not in any of their best interests. Arthur said he can shut her out, play the part, be cold and calculated like they're being at the moment, but show compassion when necessary. Every vote I hear Lorik ringing in my ears, that Arthur's love is what will save us. He also said Lilith is bright, and I think that's what is coming through in this scene. No darkness, only light.
Thank you, Gogoat, for your beautiful submission.
Oh, you mentioned music didn't bring John back. Oh, my brain is actively wrinkling. I wonder if hearing that piece of music is gonna tip the scales at all of whether or not John comes back or John comes more presently to the surface. I don't know.
I mean, I was thinking that the way that we talk about this vote might bring Jong back. And if we want to get into vote talk, we could.
Yes, I think we should.
Okay, so the poll for this week was walk with Larson versus do not walk with Larson. 78% of us want to walk with Larson, and 22% would prefer not to walk with Larson. That's 459 votes as of Sunday at like 5, almost 6 p.m. Harlan time. So pretty much decided.
And it's been that way for days.
People really want to walk with Larson. So that's, I mean, yeah.
And for a myriad of reasons, some of which are based on whether this is a morality or ethical test, but a lot of people just want to hear Larson's stupid voice, and a lot of people think that we're going to get some kind of intel from him, which I think that we will get something out of an interaction with Larson. I'm not holding out too much hope that we're going to get any like useful information because Larson is giving us useful information.
So I had some really, first of all, what are you voting?
I am voting to walk with Larson.
Okay, and I am voting do not walk. Apparently.
Are you?
Apparently. I just opened the browser and that was what my vote was toggled to, so I guess that's where I landed.
Okay. I guess.
So I have seen arguments on both sides for this that make sense to me. I particularly was talking about the fact that, you know, if we walk with Larson, we could get information that he's not going to be able to give in front of the king. If we walk with Larson, why the fuck would he give us anything? His life sucks no matter what, and he doesn't care if the world ends. He's having a shit time, and he'd probably like to die right now.
Yeah,
so
he would welcome death.
Right. There's also the fact that, like, we really haven't heard from Larson since the part 40, and we don't know what's been going on. He could have more insight into the truth behind Yellow and John's merging and how that went and what conversations were taking place. Again, why he would tell us any of that, I do not really know. He could be like, maybe he's so upset with Yellow that he and the king that he would be like, I'll do whatever, and, you know, anything that fucks the king over or any opportunity. He could also,
but it's not I mean, I was gonna say it's not like the king's gonna like hand over his leash, but
Yeah,
I
right.
don't know.
I really
Maybe
don't
he
know. I
is.
really don't know. Honestly, Vol, I don't know
the
what's going to happen. We have a
the
naked man crawling on all fours in this podcast wearing a collar made of bones with eyes that he doesn't own sewn into his skull.
I I love the visuals in this podcast. Malevolent is such a is so many beautiful tableaus, you know?
Yeah, I mean that's a word for it. I think it's also equally likely that this is completely it doesn't like I could see this being more of a weight on Arthur's conscience. I mean, something I had to remind
Yeah.
people in poll chat is that we are not voting on whether or not Arthur is sympathetic to Larson. He has already
Yes. Yes.
expressed sympathy. Arthur
I think that that's a
doesn't
really good point.
clearly does not like seeing Larson like this, doesn't feel good about this, isn't feeling vindicated or spiteful or happy to see Larson. Well, see, he can't see shit, he's blind, but to have
Yeah.
Larson in this
Yeah.
position. And so
Right.
I think it's important that people not get caught up on should Arthur not feel bad, because Arthur does feel bad. His
Yeah.
decision not to walk with Larson then I think would be a little bit he's going, "Oh, you know what? Like I guess that's not the most important thing. Never mind."
Sure,
Or he's
sure. But
prioritizing John and getting
mhm.
John back or, talking with
Right,
the
right, right.
king more because this
Yes.
vote is interpreted as we're choosing to walk with Larson, but the king will not be present, versus
Mm.
Larson having to crawl on all fours, but we do get to see the king. So,
Right. Yeah, and that was really the only sort of angle on this vote that made me question whether or not we should choose to walk with Larson or not, is because if it was like a choice between having a conversation with Larson and having a conversation with the king, that would make me think more and I guess differently about the vote. But if, for me at least, I take this vote in context of the fact that the king literally brings up Arthur's exact words from Bedrock, and from that low point where Arthur was blinded by rage and guilt, and I think that with the growth that Arthur has gone through and the growth that John has gone through and the fact that John pulled him back from the brink in that moment, there's just I think that choosing to walk with Larson and to give him some dignity and recognize him as a man regardless of the horrible things that he's done is an important message to include in this moment. And I did see someone in the chat said, I think it was Mizra, said that they couldn't imagine having a meaningful conversation with the king while Larson is just crawling between them.
but they already
So
have.
I know. So it's a lot of interesting angles to consider, all of which sort of boil down to the reminder that Larson is naked except for a bone collar. You
Well,
know.
I think too that it's also difficult to know exactly what principles to stick to right now, because we did just have a whole section of the show where we bit off our finger instead of Lilith's, and it
Yeah.
was a decision that has been cast into a different light, and kind of this becomes this whole, okay, where do you draw the line? What's too much? Where
Sure.
does, like,
Sure.
what is a moral decision versus a, I mean, what are morals and ethics? You could do philosophy really
Sure.
good on
Sure.
Malevolent,
Sure.
but
Yeah.
I don't, I hesitate to say that just choosing, okay, I'm just a very pragmatic person, and to me, walking with Larson doesn't feel like a grace to Larson or like a dignity for Larson, because he's just
Hmm.
going right back where he was as soon as we're done talking to him. It feels to me more like we're using him.
I mean, unless Arthur's compassion toward Larson in this moment, or his choice to give him some shred of dignity, changes the king's opinion.
Yeah, and I mean, I was saying that the
But now
king's
I'm really thinking that we shouldn't walk with Larson. I don't know how you convinced me, but suddenly.
I don't either because you just disagreed with me the whole time. But I don't know. Look. I'm very either way with this vote. I genuinely could flip and not be and lose no sleep. So I'm happy
Yes.
that Walk with Larson is winning. That's fine. But I do think that for me, the reason that I stuck with Do Not Walk with Larson is because I don't foresee that being an advantageous turn
Mm-hmm.
for specifically for Arthur. I mean, it might do something with the king, it might affect all the other parts of the story, but when I'm thinking about Arthur and what I think we could get from Larson, walking with
Yeah.
him doesn't seem to offer the security that I feel like talking more with the king does. But at the
Yes.
same
Yeah.
time, we've you could say we've had all this time to talk with the king. We've had plenty of conversations with the king. Larson said 2 lines, and we should it would be beneficial to hear from him a little bit before we go. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I think it could go either
Well,
way.
and I do think that even if we don't get any like lore or useful information, I do think that this poll could be seen as Walking with Larson is the explore every side quest kind of answer.
Yeah.
And I mean, honestly, like, I also felt like I think I would have been happy with either option winning, but I am more curious to see what will happen. I don't know. I'm curious to see what the outcome is in the next episode of this vote winning, because that'll give me a better idea of like what were the actual stakes of this vote. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's hard to tell what the stakes are, and I think too that I don't want I don't want it to seem like I'm saying we shouldn't be choosing compassionate answers, but we did choose a compassionate attempt. We attempted to be compassionate by biting off our own finger, and that backfired.
Right.
And so I'm trying to
Yeah.
say maybe the visibly compassionate choice is not always the correct one. Maybe it is. Maybe it's not always the perfect thing to do to always be super um thoughtful about these things. I don't know. You just never know with a malevolent vote.
Right. But speaking of that, we should listen to Gogoat's second message.
Yes.
Hello, Autopsy, Gogoat here again, any pronouns. This vote had me going back and forth a little. When John first learns of Larson in season 3, he is viewing himself as a monster for his actions in the dark world, and is in part measuring himself up against him. If Arthur despises this man so much for actions that seem like nothing to John compared to what he did in the dark world, how will Arthur feel about him? It probably made him feel very unworthy of any kindness or forgiveness. This, I believe, in part is why John's influence in the Jello combo didn't change how Larson was being treated at all. And I feel like there could potentially be some degree of projection in there, because we know that even though Arthur did forgive John, John still feels a lot of guilt for what he did in the Dark World, very fairly. My gut also went appeal to compassion, and even though I hate Larson's guts, and frankly I think he's getting exactly what he deserves, but Arthur is the type to forgive, and we should show that we are open to forgiveness, so we walk with him. But then I thought, well, that's what my logic was with the vote with Lilith, and it didn't work. But then again, the reason that happened was because I was viewing Lilith like John, and this time I'm making the same mistake the other way around. So I say still, we walk with Larson. Bye, autopsies.
Thank you so much for that second half of your submission, and I'm fascinated that our points just slid right into each other.
Right, right. Yeah. Yeah, that's why I was like, okay, before you go any further.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
But I hadn't considered the thought that John was still in that mindset of guilt about what he did in the dark world and might be projecting that onto Larson as like in a way like I am no better than that, like this is what a monster deserves. And I think that again, framing the vote in that context, it's interesting to think about the implications of Arthur showing John what part of him still remains in the king, that even a monster is worth
It's
giving
so
some level of dignity.
oh, this podcast is hard. This podcast is
I
so
know.
hard. I
I
just think
know.
okay,
I
look at
know.
listen. I just look. Okay. I
Look, listen, look.
I just I have my whole life struggled with decision paralysis and decision fatigue, and I can see
And then
things
you
from
decided
so
to get
many
hyperfixated on an audio drama podcast that has a big, impactful vote every single week
I can see things
for the
from
past
so
year and a
many
half.
angles and sides and perspectives. I can see arguments in everything from multiple
Yeah,
perspectives, and I don't ever struggle to understand other people's points of view. I just have to
right.
think long enough to understand them. And so
Yeah,
I really can see both sides of every vote we make. The problem is I want to be right. I want to be correct.
I know.
And the
I know.
podcast
Yeah,
chooses the vote and it tells me if I'm correct or not. And all I truly care about is being correct.
I know. I know.
I
I like face as in the chat. I want a good grade in Malevolent, something normal to want and possible to achieve. Yes,
I
that's our mantra, really.
so like I totally see all of this. The fact that Larson could totally be just a reflection of the way that the king sees himself, and like this
Hmm.
external way to punish somebody in the same way that Arthur was punishing Larson but really viewed it as himself. Like
Right, right,
I
right.
get that, but I also was thinking about Bedrock and how Arthur ends up like John pulls him back from that, but Arthur ends up realizing this, and he doesn't actually get to really go through with what he wanted to do. He has to kill Uncle instead, and then it just becomes like,
Right.
how depraved are you that you need to kill even an extension of that reflection that you projected onto somebody? It just gets further and further
Yeah.
extrapolated. But then are we saying, if you're paralleling, if you're trying to say this is the same situation, is the king really John's bedrock? I don't think so. I think
Hmm.
John's bedrock was maybe, I don't know, killing tens of thousands of Arthurs.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't think this is the
yeah. That
same
was that
thing.
was pretty low. That was a pretty low point, I'd say.
I don't know. It's just and I do think that the way that he's treating Larson right now is a combination of both Yellow and
Yes,
John's feelings. I don't think it should be
absolutely.
attributed to just one or the other. We
No,
have
I
to
think it's
remember
definitely a
again that
combination.
they are a combined entity now. So
Yeah,
it's further tainted by the fact that, like, are we teaching Yellow something right now? Are we teaching
right.
maybe this is an opportunity
There's
for Yellow to, to see that, even though you can't really talk about them as separate entities anymore, if you think about them as two people squished into one body, which they're not, and we've talked about that,
right.
you can kind of come out on the other side saying maybe we have to go through this with Yellow really briefly here and say, like, hey, even Larson deserves basic human dignity. Maybe all people, no matter how bad they are or what they do, deserve food, shelter, clothing, that kind of thing.
I mean, yeah. I
But
mean,
I don't know.
since season one, we have one of the through lines, one of the themes has been, I have to believe that every creature can be redeemed, or I have to believe that even a monster can be redeemed. Like, that has been one of the, overarching themes. And so I think if you look really deeply into all of the facets of this vote, you can get really deep into the weeds of ethics and morality and things like that. But then other times,
If you zoom
the
out, it's
curtain,
3 words on a
the,
poll.
and other times the curtains are just blue.
Yeah,
So
it's so hard. This is why I was yelling at the beginning of this little segment we had here, because we're talking about this so deeply about narratives and character arcs and lines from past episodes. The vote is walk with Larson versus do not walk with Larson, and we cannot
right.
extrapolate any fucking further about what that means. And it drives me crazy that I will never know until it's over. Until it's over, I won't know if I'm right
I
or not.
know.
So let's listen to this final voice message from Wizard, Prophet, insanely well-spoken Pie.
Happy Halloween, Autopsy. This is Pie coming to you dressed as Arthur Lester. As much as we may or may not be relishing in the current status quo, I don't really care about what becomes of Larson. I care about what this says about Arthur and how what Arthur does informs the king. He is the worst parts of humanity, as you yourself have proclaimed. You know who else Arthur has proclaimed this of. And what has Larson actually been accused of in this conversation by the king that is not applied to Arthur? Not expressing remorse? Having no desire to change? No. He is not just a man. Man and monster are not exclusive. The king is treating them as if they are, but if they were, why doesn't Arthur belong on the floor with him? As John said in Bedrock, Larson is just a man whose son Arthur killed in cold blood. How can you ever expect to let go if you can't stop to look through the eyes of the one you've hurt? Giving Larson any grace is not supposed to be easy, but Arthur has already expressed his pity of him. I want him to act on it.
Thank you, Pie, as usual, for a ghostly submission. I loved it, and it did remind me of
Banger.
my favorite quote from my previously favorite episode, The Nightmare. Did I kill an evil man, or in killing you was an evil man created?
Yes. Oh, mwah, mwah, mwah. So good. And I love that you came back. Like, it's not a callback. It hasn't been long enough, but it's in a way, it's a callback to what Lilith says in the episode. Yeah, how can you expect to let go unless you take the time to look through the eyes of the one you've hurt? And Arthur has just learned that lesson. And I think that kind of in a way, like encouraging the king, or what part of John and Yellow is within that entity, to consider, the suffering that even a quote unquote monster has gone through. Very interesting.
Yeah, and I think when Lilith said, see through the eyes of those you've hurt, I think my gut instinct was, how would you even begin to imagine what I took it very literally for a second, and I was like, how do you portray a child drowning? Like what do you want me to
Right.
like try and imagine myself in that position? That doesn't really work. And then I realized, it's more about like being able to understand what, for example, in this example, what Thoreau, you have to be willing to put yourself in the position of remembering what she must have lived her life like, and what she's missing out on now, and being able to sit with that rather than dwell on how you controlled that. And I think
Exactly.
it's a very different perspective to have when you think about the fact that, most of Arthur's breakdowns have been about his part in her death, which is
guilt,
huge.
His grief.
But that's not really the same as grieving the loss of a life.
No, it's grieving her death without necessarily grieving, the loss of the life itself.
Yeah.
But I do want to say that, speaking of taking things a little too literally, after I finished listening to the episode for the first time, and based on the way that the king phrased things, I was like, wait a second. Is he saying that if we want to walk with Larson, Arthur needs to crawl on the ground next to him? Is that what we're talking about? And I saw one or two other people who were like, yeah, I also kind of wondered if that was the intention at first too, but no, it couldn't be. So I really hope we're right that it's not.
Well, I have to say, I pulled up the transcript, and I think, even though it doesn't mean anything for me to flip now, I think I would flip to Walking with Larson. And the only reason I'm saying that right now is because he is the worst parts of humanity. And the fact that the King in Yellow says that resonates directly with how many times Arthur has called himself the best and worst parts of humanity. Right. To think that, yes, he's not just a man, Arthur, he's a murderer and a monster. You could call Arthur those same things. Arthur could be in that position himself, and would we be begging somebody to help let him get up, probably, because we know all
Right.
of Arthur's story. We don't know all of Larson's story. And Larson is meant to be a villain that is put in this sharply negative light. We're not supposed to sympathize with him. I don't think that the point is that
Right.
Larson is a good person or whatever, but I do think
Right.
the show has taught us that there's always nuance in every single person's story, and maybe Larson you could feel like he deserves this. You could want this
Maybe
for
he
him.
has. Maybe he has some redeeming qualities. I don't know.
But I do think that you can never, nobody will ever be redeemed if you don't give them the opportunity to have enough dignity to
Yes.
start doing that. So,
Yeah. AK Trash Panda in the chat says the foils be foiling. Yes,
the foils
indeed.
be
Indeed.
foiling. And with that, I think that's a great way to close out our show.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for coming. I had a blast. You guys are the best for putting up with all of the rambling and off tangents. And we're
We
gonna
didn't
have
go too
Malevolent.
off topic this episode.
We'll see if you feel that way when you're editing the show. Thank you guys again for coming. Tomorrow's Malevolent Monday. We're gonna get answers to these questions and see if we were correct, which is so important to
In,
me
like,
specifically.
24 hours. Yes.
Oh my god, yeah, about 24
All right.
hours from now.
Yeah, can't wait to hold hands and jump into the abyss with all of you.
All right, guys, thank you again so much for coming, and we will see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, of course, to Harlan Guthrie, the sole creator of Malevolent. Without his labor of love for a story he wants to tell, we wouldn't be here. To join the live recording, submit your own message, get in touch with me, and more, visit Linktree/Malevolent Autopsy. The official Invictus Discord server is open to the public and includes a channel just for Malevolent Autopsy fans. We also have our own private, patrons-only channel. Finally, thank you to Mizra, Nikki, Vol Control, and everyone who has helped create and maintain Malevolent Autopsy. These friends are also volunteers who donate time and energy to help put together this love letter to Malevolent.
The horrors persist.
But so do we.